Well. Good morning, and a pleasant good Monday morning. We celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day today in the United States of America and the incredible impact that the civil rights leader made back in the 1960s. So for many of you, that means a day off. For some of you, it does not. Nonetheless, we thank you for joining us, and welcome to Dialed In. I'm Thom Brenneman, normally joined by Luke Brenneman, but he is out on a mini vacation this week away from college. His life, in a lot of ways, is a vacation. Although I give him a lot of credit. He works pretty much full-time while he's going to school and broadcasting a bunch of different events. So that's a cheap shot, and he's not here to defend himself. Here to defend himself from any banter is Casey McAllister. Good morning, Casey. How was your weekend?
Good morning. It was good. It was really good. I spent most of it watching football. Couldn't have asked for a better weekend. Just casually sitting on the couch with a beer in hand, sitting next to the wife watching football. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Casey, I got to tell you.
What?
You know where I'm going with this. It's one thing to put on your orange and black colored glasses all season long during the Bengals season. But this attire today, are you kidding me?
What do you mean?
What's a wrong Notre with this Dame lid and a Notre Dame sweatshirt? Are you kidding me?
You like it? I like it a lot. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let me ask you a question. Do you pay taxes in the Buckeye State?
Yes. Yes, I do.
You do. And on your driver's license, it says that you're an Ohio resident. So there's a real good chance that, if you had to travel somewhere and it required for you to show them an ID, that most people would look at that today anyway, that are sports fans, and they'd say, oh, man, this guy's got to be rooting for the Buckeyes, right? And you're wearing a Notre Dame hat and a Notre Dame sweatshirt.
That's right. I am wearing my team. I'm on
my team.
My team, the right side.
My team.
The Men of God. The Men of God. This is Notre Dame. The Catholics. They're going to get it done tonight.
Well, we have plenty of time to talk about that. There's no doubt. Our show is presented by UDF and Encore Technologies. Thanks so much for being with us. We come your way twice a week, Mondays at 9 and then Thursdays at noon. You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. Thousands of you, I notice, in here already, including the chat. And, of course, if you can't make it live, you can download us anywhere, anytime. Just search Dialed In with Thom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. What a sports weekend. No two ways about it, especially football, but basketball too. But let's start with the biggest game, and that's tonight. The College Football Playoff National Championship, two of the biggest brands in the sport collide. It's in Atlanta, where the Ohio State University Buckeyes take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Spread started at 9.5, got down to 8, and now it's back up to 9.5 again with Ohio State as the favorite. These are two gritty teams. They have savvy, experienced quarterbacks. My wife is running around the house with her Notre Dame attire right now already. She's a Notre Dame alum, and she's running around. She brought me this, Casey.
Oh, yes. Yes, I love it.
You want to do this? You do this? Adios.
Can't believe you just did that.
I love my wife more than anything in the world, but tonight I'm watching the game in the basement. She's watching the game on the first floor. She doesn't want to be around me for this game, and quite honestly, I don't want to be around her for this game. You have Will Howard, veteran guy, transfer from Kansas State at quarterback for the Bucs. Riley Leonard, veteran guy, transfer from Duke for Notre Dame. Two fantastic defenses, two outstanding coaches, each in search of their first national championship. The Buckeyes last won it all 10 years ago under Urban, leader of men, Urban Meyer. Notre Dame's last title was 1988. Most of our audience was not born then. Lou Holtz was the head coach for the Fighting Irish. Kickoff, we're told, is 7:30. We'll talk about it in a minute. Now, on the pro front, We are down to the Final Four. In the AFC, ho-hum, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the AFC Championship game for the 7th consecutive year. You can say whatever you want. And look, when you're the top dog in the winner, it happened with the Patriots. It's now happening with the Chiefs. People come out of the woodworks about, oh, the officials are in their pocket. Look, it's 7 years in a row they have played in the AFC Championship. Think about it for a minute. Put it in perspective for us locally. I mean, we thought it was the coolest thing ever that the Bengals got to 2 in a row. You imagine 7 in a row? 7? They beat the Houston Texans on Saturday. Kickoff from Kansas City will be Sunday at 6:30. And guess who the opponent is? The Buffalo Bills. They finally break through, and they win in the divisional round. It was a wild game last night. You know, another game where neither quarterback was particularly dazzling, and that's been the knock on both of these guys in their playoff postseason careers. You know, Jackson turns it over, twice? He has an interception and a fumble. I feel terrible for Mark Andrews. And a lot of Bengal fans are just going to kill Andrews because he plays for the Ravens. This guy's been a great player. He's been a model citizen for a long, long time. And I think they said he had not dropped the ball since the 3rd week of the season. He had 3 huge drops last night, including wide open 2-point conversion that would have tied the game. Give Lamar credit. I mean, at nut-cutting time, the dude delivered the goods. He took him straight down the field, down by 8, with 3.5 to go. He gets him in the end zone, and then they throw the pass, and Edwards dropped it. The only thing that bothers me about the Edwards thing is, and I've said this before, so it's not like I'm taking a shot at him. If Edwards would have caught the game-winning touchdown, let's say it went to overtime, or he would have caught the game-winning 2-point conversion, which this would not have been. It would have been to tie the game if he caught it. I guarantee you he'd have been standing in front of the press to answer questions after the game. He didn't do it last time. This is part of a big boy profession. When you do great, you answer the media. When you do poorly or things don't go your way, you stand up and answer the questions. You don't duck people when you have bad days. And that's what Andrews did after the game. Listen, I have a heart, okay? I have a heart. So it's not like I'm sitting here bludgeoning the guy. And I prefaced everything by saying I feel terrible for him. I feel awful for the guy. But hey, man, you got to show up. You got to show up and answer the questions. Your teammates had to do it. You think Lamar wanted to get up there? And they're all defending you up one side and down the other. Your coach is doing the same thing. You think any of those guys who got beat over the weekend didn't want to duck the media? Of course they did. I mean, you don't think the Lions wanted to duck the media? Golf? 3 picks and a fumble? Come on. Got to be better than that. Over in the AFC, speaking of golf and the Lions, they get leveled by the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner out of LSU, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. He runs for 51 more in a 45-31 win. Washington will travel to Philadelphia for the conference final. 3rd meeting between division rivals this year. The Eagles hung on, and I mean hung on. Monster performance by Saquon Barkley, 205 rushing yards. But the Rams were driving, ran out of downs at the end, 28-22. The two teams did split the regular season series. Kickoff is set for 3 p.m. on Sunday. That's on Fox. We'll go through our picks from last week and look ahead to next week's games here in a second. College basketball, UC won its 2nd straight game. Didn't look particularly good, but they won. That's all that matters. 67-60 over Arizona State. Bearcats shot 22% from 3-point range. Got out rebounded by 11, but they only turned the ball over 7 times. You turn it over 7 times in college basketball, you got a good chance to win. Texas Tech comes to town tomorrow night, 7 p.m. tip. And Xavier got a huge win on Saturday. Stunning number 7 Marquette on the road, 59-57. X has won 3 straight. Really, when their season was starting to hang in the balance. It's still hanging in the balance, but I mean, it was really hanging in the balance. The Muskies only shoot 40% in the game. They were 2 for 17 from three-point land, but their defense was phenomenal. And Marquette's overrated. They're overrated. There are a lot of teams that are overrated. There just aren't very many really good teams. And Marquette was ranked 7th. They're not the 7th best team in the country. But kudos to Xavier for coming away and getting the win. They go to St. John's, Rick Pitino and company, on Wednesday night. All right, Casey, let's get to it. I want to get to this whole belief that the Kansas City Chiefs get calls from the referees. Troy Aikman came right out and basically said that there were calls made in the game during the telecast, which he didn't like. Mahomes on the call on the sideline, a lot of people feeling like he flopped to draw that penalty. I watched a lot of it on television, some of it on the radio, and I can't remember who was doing the national radio broadcast, but they basically said the same thing that some others were saying, that Kansas City always gets the calls. Now, look, we know that's not true. They don't always get the calls, okay? But it seems as though, whether you buy into this or not, one thing that cannot be denied is the league has a problem right now with this perception. When you have D'Amico Ryans, the head coach of the Houston Texans, basically saying after the game, we knew it was us against Kansas City and the refs. You have Joe Mixon saying the same thing. C.J. Stroud, he stood above it all. He didn't lower himself to go down that trail. But do you really believe that the league – don't you agree the league has a problem, at least in perception?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely – I am in the camp where I think that there is a problem. I think that Mahomes gets protected way more than any other quarterback in the league, and that's not just me saying it for Burrow's sake. That's for me saying it for Allen, for Lamar, for any of the quarterbacks in the league. Mahomes gets this benefit of the doubt, this protection that no other quarterback gets, and I think that is absurd. One of the calls that was made on the field, he didn't even get touched. 2 of the Texans players collided, and it ends up being a pass, roughing the passer call, or a personal foul call, and
Right.
That extends the drive. And the thing that is infuriating about these calls is that, no, they don't get every call, but most of the time these calls are in critical moments on 3rd down, 4th down, that help the Chiefs extend drives. And we've just seen it time and time again this season, where they get the beneficiary of a call that extended their drive, that allowed them to either go score or take a lead. And it's frustrating as fans to see it, especially on the other side, where we saw C.J. Stroud get sacked, 9 times, and there's plenty of times where full body, thrown to the ground, hitting high up in the chest and neck area, and he's not getting any calls whatsoever. It just sucks. It just sucks. And I would not have a problem if it was more just called consistently across all the quarterbacks. Then I wouldn't have much of a problem with it, because it's just a quarterback issue, right? Do we give them too much protection? And that's a different conversation. This is more centered, and the conversation's more centered towards Mahomes getting the benefit of the doubt. And it's not even just him playing as normal. He's trying to walk out of bounds and get the defenders to touch him, so then he can kind of like flop out of bounds. And that stuff to me is just, it's soft. It's really, really soft. And there's a couple other quarterbacks in the league that do this, and sometimes they get those calls. I've never, and I wish Burrow would do it sometimes, because I think he could get a few calls here and there. Burrow never does it. He never does it. He never
Yeah.
takes advantage of that, and I wish that other teams would try to take advantage of it because it's apparently a thing, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just Mahomes. That being said, it should never come down to penalties, right? Like that's the thing is, and to your point, what you were alluding to D'Amico and to Joe Mixon, you should not be in a position to where that call is the reason why you lost. And the Texans outgained the Chiefs by 100+ yards. Like they had
Yeah,
plenty.
we know they outgained them, but we also know that the Chiefs in the game had 8 sacks.
Right. Right.
I
That
mean,
shouldn't happen.
that's a difference in the game. Quarterback's getting killed back there, and Lord knows we've seen that here in Cincinnati. But look, I don't want to interrupt you. Finish your point, and then I want to ask you one more question though about this whole Kansas City thing.
Yeah, and I'm just going to wrap it up in saying that should never come down to that. Sacks were the biggest part of that game. Tom, it is inexcusable what happened on that one drive where they blitzed that same overload blitz up the middle 4 times in a row, and they did nothing to stop it. They didn't bring a running back in to help protect. Whoever is calling protections, it's usually the center or the quarterback, and I'm assuming at this point it's probably the quarterback. How in the world do you not get that right? I mean, they're coming after the third time. Like, you see it on 4th down, and they just let it happen. It's unexcusable. The only reason that it even gets to that point is because your quarterback thinks he can make a play, or someone thinks that they can do something that they just can't. And that's just very frustrating for that Texans team to let that happen so many times in a row in that same drive. Especially, I think they were pretty close to scoring too. They were at least in field goal range when that drive started to unwind. So I just very, very frustrating for the Texans. They also missed a couple kicks too, right? Fairborn was really bad that day. But yeah, I mean,
the bottom line is, Casey, you and I both know they were not going to win the game. I mean, the Texans were not going to go to Kansas City and beat them. The Chiefs were playing to go to their 7th straight, as I mentioned earlier, AFC Championship game. They have Pat Mahomes. Kelsey shows up when it matters. He's not had a good regular season. He was spectacular the other day. And that's another question you ask yourself. You talked about, 4 or 5 plays in a row. I mean, how many times have we seen through the years? How many times have we seen through the years where Kelsey is standing open in the middle of the field and there's nobody within 7 yards of him? I mean, I wish you had $1 for every time we've seen him. There are just some things that was never going to happen. Houston was not going to win a game. They've never won a divisional round game in the history of the franchise. They weren't going to Kansas City, and people can say it was the refs. It wasn't the refs. It's defense, which we're going to get to that a little bit later. All right, let's move on now to the other game, Baltimore and Buffalo. There's that stretch, opening kickoff. Baltimore goes down the field, touchdown, and you're thinking, here we go. Buffalo comes back, gets a touchdown shortly thereafter. Lamar throws a pick on Baltimore's second series. And then all of a sudden, it sort of starts to settle in a little bit. The third quarter was brutal offensively. Both teams' defenses were really, really good. There were a lot of drop passes. You can understand that in the weather conditions. In the Philadelphia game, they talked a lot about what it's like. Who did that game, Philadelphia? Was that Collinsworth? Was that their group that did that game?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and I mean, they talked a lot about the weather conditions and how hard it is to hold on to the ball. And the same thing certainly held true last night in Buffalo. But the bottom line is, look, Lamar got up there and answered all the tough questions. Apparently, Nance it was Romo who talked a lot about it last night. I thought Romo was really good last night. But in the meetings with Nance and Romo, apparently, from what they shared of those meetings and the conversations, Lamar was very upfront and honest about his postseason games of the past. Lamar's never won back-to-back postseason games. In his 7 years in the league, and he's won 2 MVPs, might win another one this year. He's never won back-to-back playoff games. And apparently he addressed them very openly, very honestly in his conversations with Nance and Romo and that crew. And I thought he played – I thought most of the game he played really, really well. He threw the ball well. He ran it when he had to run it. Yes, he had a fumble. Yes, he had a pick. But again, at nut-cutting time, he was there. You know, we talk a lot about the Bengals and not being able to deliver the goods late in games, finish off games, come back and win games, all those kind. Lamar Jackson took his team down the field, the final possession of the game, and they scored a touchdown. And then he threw a pass that should have tied the game in the 2-point conversion that was dropped. Your thoughts, Casey, on that game, Buffalo and Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you. I thought the Ravens certainly outplayed the Bills, but the difference is turnovers. That's all it really boils down to. And Lamar has shown time and time again that next playoff game against a tough opponent is just too much to overcome. He makes mistakes, and those 3 mistakes, those 3 turnovers from the team, not just him, cost them the game. If you remove one of those mistakes, I think they win the ball game. I really do. I think that if he doesn't throw the interception, they probably go down, kick a field goal at least. And if he doesn't fumble it, they were in the kicking range then at that point too. I think they were probably driving into the red zone at that point too. It's unfortunate. And honestly, it came down to that final play, Mark Andrews dropping that ball. It certainly sealed the game up to that point. It removed a tie in overtime from coming into the discussion here. But you just can't put the ball in harm's way. That's as simple as that. The one I think is most egregious is the fumble that Lamar had. You can't hold the football like that in those weather conditions. You can't be trying to make plays like that. You got to get rid of the ball. And that's just something that he has not really learned to do because he's never really had to. He's always been able to make a play on his feet. He's not really had to learn to throw the ball out of bounds, to live for the next down, right? Live for the next drive even. And I think that ultimately cost them this game, which is unfortunate. The Bills, on the other hand, they just kind of like did what they needed to do. They just
That's right. That's
they
exactly
kept the
right.
ball clean. They kept Josh Allen clean, and they were able to kind of chip away at that team just enough to be able to get into field goal range a few times, score a few touchdowns, and that was it. That's all that they needed to do. And that's really what their formula should be going into the next game, which we'll I'm sure talk about that later. But ultimately, this was a great game. Snow game, came down to the final play. It's just Lamar's got an issue. I don't know how he's going to be able to fix it until next season.
Yeah, but at the end of the
playoff
game when
issue.
it mattered, Casey, he was there. I mean, look, had he had the turnovers and then they get the ball on the last drive down 8, and he throws another pick or he fumbles or they turn it over on downs, I think that a lot of people would really be, he'd be a target today for the ire of many. But I think he gets a pass after taking that team down the field and tying the game. The pressure in that situation is mind-boggling, and he was spectacular. He goes right down. I mean, it took no time. Buffalo would have had time to probably win the game. He just goes right down the field. Great play calling. That's another thing I noticed over the weekend. Was a lot of play calling. I despised early in the game, and it turned out to be a moot point. But, hey, look, I love Dan Quinn, and I, interviewed him many, many times back in my NFL days, and he was a defensive coordinator. For the life of me, I don't know how in the world it can ever make sense, and I don't care if they've done it 10,000 times during the regular season. When you're trying to win a playoff game, and we'll get into that game right now, Washington looked phenomenal. I mean, they look like a team that can win the Super Bowl. Yeah, they gave up 31, but they scored 45. Jaden Daniels is unbelievable. They've got a good running game. They've got good, solid, if not spectacular, wide receivers, though they have some receivers that have been spectacular in the postseason. Brown, we know how good McLaurin is. They look great. But to finish my point, I mean, where does it ever make sense? And again, there'll be people in the chat that come back and say, well, he's done it all year and it's worked. Okay. But where does it ever make sense to take the ball out of your best player's hands in the most critical situations, 3rd and short, 4th and short, whatever it might be, down near the goal line, and put in the backup quarterback? I mean, you're not bringing in Tim Tebow, who was a backup quarterback for the Florida Gators when they beat Ohio State in the national championship in 2007. You're not bringing in this power machine that's going to catch it and just run right through about 3 guys to get the yard. This is Marcus Mariota. I mean, he's as thin as I used to be. They say he's an awesome dude. He's had a nice career. He doesn't have to be a great player for a number 1 draft pick. Maybe he hadn't lived up to that. But what in the world is he doing getting the ball? And people say, well, the running back screwed up the play. I don't care. Why is Jaden Daniels not in the game? But we move on. The Commanders, I tell you, Casey, I have a hard time seeing them getting beat by Philly this weekend.
I think that this was a perfect situation for the Commanders, to be honest with you. I think the Lions were beat up. They didn't have their starting defense out there. And to be honest with you, this was just not a good day for Jared Goff. I mean, Jared threw for 3
another guy way overrated, has been for years, way overrated. And I know he had a great season this year, but no, big game. I'm not taking that guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it boiled down to. Jaden Daniels has been the most efficient quarterback in the NFL this season. As a rookie, he's been the most proficient quarterback, not the most statistically great quarterback, but the most efficient quarterback, making the right decisions. And he's phenomenal. He is what people think Lamar is. He's a guy that can dice you up in the pocket, and he's got a little bit of the run game in him. And it is a perfect storm, a perfect combination for this team. They got the right weapons on offense to be able to stretch the field. And on defense, they made just enough decisions this season, trading for Marshawn Lattimore, to really kind of bump them up another level to where they got enough guys that can cover in the pass to where they can get after you. That D-line is pretty solid. It's pretty solid. Wouldn't say it's over the top, over the moon, but it is a solid group now. And I think that they just made enough plays to where they were able to win the game, clearly. I mean, 45-31. But, I mean, like, it starts with the interception for a touchdown, right? I think that kind of rolls the momentum in their favor. Going into the half, it was 31-21, so they were up by 10.
Yep.
They just had to play keep away at that point, and that means that the Lions can't run the ball as much. They got to start throwing the ball, which I think was a little bit of a mistake on their part. They were very, very, very efficient in the run game. I wish they would have just stuck with it, even though they were down 10 points. I think it would have been a much closer game at that point. But when you get down by 2 scores, they feel the pressure. Jared feels the pressure to perform, and it just kind of snowballed from there. All
right, I got a question for you. Here, okay? And I thought about this a lot. And there are a couple other bigger picture things. I don't think a lot of people care about us breaking down these games where they're not Cincinnati, but they spark for me bigger issues. And I was on X about it over the weekend asking the question, and Casey, I know you were one of the guys who responded to it. 2 things. Number 1, here's what happens to fans. And to be quite honest, in our city and a lot of other cities, we're not alone. This happens to the media, of the press who cover the team. They get wrapped up in, in the home team. Okay. Fans, I get it. Media, I've never understood it. They get totally wrapped up, alibiing, whatever it might be for the home team. And that's in a lot of towns. But look, and the point I'm making by bringing this up is the T. Higgins situation. I have said on this program 1,000 times, no one loves T. Higgins in this town more than I do. I think this young man is everything that is right with a young person in today's society. He is kind, he's soft-spoken, he's gracious, he's grateful. When he's able to play, hurt frequently, but when he's able to play, he is an outstanding player. He's a great teammate. He is everything you want in certainly a football player. And it seems like everything you would want in your son as a young man. So I love T. Higgins, but you know where I'm going with this, okay? People emotionally get wrapped up in, we've got to bring T back. It was his birthday over the weekend and all that kind of thing. And happy birthday, by the way, T. Higgins. Hope you had a great birthday. Hope you get to spend it with your mom. She seems delightful as well. But Casey, people get wrapped up on, we got to bring T back. Did anybody watch the games over the weekend about what wins in this league when it matters? There's a reason the Chiefs have lost one game without an offense that hasn't done anything. With an offense that hasn't done anything all year long. They've done nothing on offense. You look at Philadelphia. Their offense has just been okay. Hurts has been hurt. He's not had a great year. Barkley's had a great year. But their defense wins them games. Baltimore and Buffalo got to where they got. Yeah, I know Baltimore had some issues in the secondary, but they were number one against the run. You couldn't run it. You became one-dimensional against them. And it was good enough for them to rarely ever lose. So, Casey, you know where I'm going in a long-winded way here. After watching these teams and what it's taking to win in the postseason, are you able to step back? And for those of you in the chat, jump in. Are you able to step back and say, you know what? I'm willing to let some stars, skill position stars, leave the Bengals in lieu of a better defense, guys that get after the quarterback, the ability to stop the run, and have an offensive line that can keep Joe Burrow upright while at the same time improving the run game in that offensive line. Are you ready to do that, Casey? Or are you going to tell me, which I know you are, you're going to tell me, I think you can do both?
Well, so here's the thing about the T. Higgins conversation and why I'm so pro keeping him around. It's because I'm tired of the Bengals letting elite players walk away. I was tired of it when they let Jesse Bates walk. I was tired of it when they let DJ Reader walk. Now, it ended up being the correct call. But I was tired of them letting elite talent that made a difference on this team walk out the door without a third contract or a second contract, whatever it might be. T. Higgins leaving exposes this team's offensive capabilities because now not only are you trying to replace the third receiver, you're trying to replace the second receiver, and you're probably going to have to replace the tight end situation. Are you really going to pay Mike Gesicki, top 10 tight end money? I don't know. Probably not. He's probably going to get that somewhere. He played like it this year, deserves it. So there's that conversation. Fold into the mix of this as well. Yeah, I think it does. Now, when we look at the numbers, if they make the cuts that they should, they cut Kappa, they cut guys like Pratt, Geno Stone. I think that they can make it work with still being able to find medium level players to fill in needs on defense. But so far, after 2 years of trying that, it's not been very successful. We've been grabbing these medium type level players to try to fill in holes on defense, and it's not worked out. So that's where I have my hesitation in this now. And also, too, we got to remember, I'm in the camp of keeping elite players. What about generational players? I'm wanting to keep Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson around, too. Trey's going to want a contract extension. So now it's almost like it's too late. Like the T. Higgins conversation was last season. it's almost too late now. And that's what I kind of came to the realization of, is just like, we have so many holes on this roster, even on offense too, that have not been addressed. Tight end, the guards, the receiver 3 position, and the defense completely needs rework, that I just don't know if it's possible. I was more on the camp of keep T. Higgins. I was probably like 85% there. Now I'm more 50-50. I think I can see a path where it can work if you keep T. Higgins, but it's going to be much more predicated on them getting it right in the draft and getting it right in free agency. Whereas I think if you let T. Higgins walk, you have more wiggle room to get other things wrong, right? You have more chances to take guys in that may or may not make a difference, right? You can spend more to get the top guy, the top defensive tackle in free agency this year. You can spend the money to take a swing on another corner, right? And I think that's where it's just so hard when we have this conversation. Do we think the Bengals are capable of making moves like that? I'm not sure. T. Higgins is the for sure thing. You know what you're getting with him, right? That's where my mindset goes.
Well, you know what you're getting with him, what he's able to get on the field.
Right. That goes with it.
I mean, that's a big part of it for Higgins. And again, I've already said how much I think of this guy, but he's hurt every year.
Right. And
all right.
And the thing is, Tom,
what?
I think that, when we have this conversation, because we're going to have it many, many times throughout the offseason,
sure.
It makes sense for them to keep him on a good deal, right? I think if he gets $25 million per, that's a fantastic deal for T. Higgins. You're getting him to that 30, that 32 range. That's where you're starting to go like, I don't know, because that $7 million difference is the difference between a medium level starter that you can attempt to swing at again, or not filling the hole at all and using the draft to try to fill in those needs. So that's the difference for me, at least in this conversation. Do they try it one more time to try to plug in a medium level type starter? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what they end up deciding.
All I know is Kansas City plays great defense. They sack the opposing quarterback. They have a revolving door at wide receiver. They've let Hill walk out the door, among others. They have a revolving door. And look, I mean, I don't know what makes this so complicated. You have a team that is doing it better than everybody else, and it's not even close. 7 straight years. Wouldn't you want – the NFL is the ultimate copycat league. Why don't you copy what they do? The Bengals are almost doing the complete opposite of what the Chiefs do. They spend all their money on skill position players, and – they don't have anybody besides Hendrickson that can get to the quarterback. Nobody. And they can't stop the run. Well, and they can't run the ball. Although they ran it a little bit better, I think, than they get credit for. And so, that's the bottom line. I don't understand what the deal is. If you have a quarterback that you think is as good as Mahomes, and I think we all agree with that. If you have a guy you think is as good as Mahomes, why can't he get along with having, okay, Jamar Chase, I'd sign him. But why do you got to go out and spend $25 million on a second receiver? I mean, you're right. We have all winter to talk about this nonsense. And it is nonsense, because anybody who tries to put the Bengals and the Chiefs in the same breath is just completely out of their mind. The other thing I want to ask you, and we're going to spend the last 15 minutes on the national championship game. Last thing I want to ask you here, Casey, and ask the chat. Just give me your answer in the chat. Just give me answer. Okay. Who would you rather have right now to start your franchise? 28-year-old Lamar Jackson, 28-year-old Josh Allen, 28-year-old Josh Burrow, or 24-year-old Jaden Daniels? I'm leaving Mahomes out of this because he's the guy. I mean, he's it. Okay. But after that, who do you take? 28 years old, the three. Burrow's actually 29, or going to be 29 soon. So you got Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Then you have Jaden Daniels, who's 24. Mark Fetter says he wants Carson Wentz. Everybody across the board, Everett, Optimistic John. I mean, right out of the gate, it's all Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow. I don't know why I'm surprised by that. Are you going to tell me Joe Burrow too?
If I was, yeah, I mean, I think Joe Burrow is special. I also think that the guys that you listed are special too in their own ways. But if I was to start a franchise from scratch, I think the smart decision is Jaden Daniels. I think you can put together a roster around a rookie quarterback that can dominate for the next 4 years, and then you get to do what the Bengals did, which is extend that rookie contract. So you spread out that money a little bit longer as you extend them. For me, it's Jaden Daniels. That's the smart decision there. I'm putting it in as a chat poll question so people can actually vote on this. But yeah, that would be my choice.
Okay. Well, and we're getting a lot of people that are agreeing with that. Real Spirit Cat 1, Everett Henry. Ron Esterman says, hey, I'd go with Joe, but I'm a fan. He says, I know what you mean. Steve Ross, you can't go wrong with any of those guys. So, yeah. And you're spot on. You cannot go wrong with those guys. And look how many of them are still playing, right? Or at least we're playing over the weekend. And Burrow was the only one who was not, but that's to no fault of his own. He had a phenomenal year. All right, let's shift gears to the big one tonight. I'm going to be bouncing off the walls down here in this basement for the Buckeyes and Notre Dame. I thought it was so I had to go to a Christmas party for the Buckeyes against Tennessee. So I was in a big public area with a lot of people. I was out at a house we were staying in Arizona with my family when Ohio State beat Oregon. And then I was by myself in a hotel room in Miami a week and a half ago during the Buckeyes win over Texas. So to be in our house, I am elated to be in our house and right here in Cincinnati for this one tonight. Look, Ohio State's heavily favored, understandably so. They have an incredible roster, but they were never a team until after the Michigan loss. They had great players. They weren't a team. Right now they're playing like a team that understands it's been given another chance. In the 4-team college football playoff, the Michigan game would have knocked them out. And this is what I love about the 12-team, not because Ohio State's in it, but because Notre Dame, too. Notre Dame had a terrible loss. Their only loss early in the year was against Northern Illinois. They had to run the table and have run the table ever since. And it gives teams a chance to peak at the right time with 12 teams rather than 4. And that's what's happening here with Ohio State. They have incredible talent. They're playing like a team. Their offense has all the weapons. It's well documented. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. Their defense is the best in the country, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt. That defense is sick how good they are. Their special teams are not so hot. And that would be my biggest concern tonight as an Ohio State fan, the special teams part of this game. The other part is, let's be honest about it. Notre Dame just does whatever it takes to go out and win. And that's a credit to the players and the coaching staff. I think Notre Dame is a much better team than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And when you read the comments made by other people, coaches who coached against them this year, they said the same thing. They said this is a tough, good football team. Really good. Their defense is excellent. They have an experienced quarterback. They have an outstanding run game. The Love kid is fantastic, and he's been battling through sickness and injury. He's a great player. But, I mean, look, they got guys that are lacrosse players playing wide receiver. And that's the truth. They do. They're banged up on the offensive line. Ohio State is too. They've had to change all that thing around. But lately, Notre Dame now has some injuries that are starting to catch up. and they're beat up in a couple of spots on defense going into this game tonight. So, you look at Ohio State's offense against Notre Dame's defense. Notre Dame plays a lot of man-to-man. That will be suicide tonight if they play man-to-man. Now, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know the X's and O's about, can you ask your guys to play this man-to-man system all year long? Because they have very good cornerbacks. And then in 1 week's time to try and learn and be good at some kind of a zone or bracket sort of a scheme, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know the answer to that question. But I do know this. If you play Ohio State's receivers man-to-man, you are going to get killed. Or you better get to the quarterback in a hurry. Ohio State's defense against Notre Dame's offense, it's going to be really interesting to watch, because I said how great Ohio State's defense has been, especially against the run, and they have been, and man, have they been hitting people during this postseason. My Lord. But Notre Dame finds a way. Leonard is a huge challenge. He's not a big thrower, but he's good enough throwing, and he's a great runner. Now, I think Ohio State has speed. It's like Milano last night. They're asking Milano in the pro game to spy Lamar Jackson. That's like asking me to spy a 19-year-old on the basketball court. I mean, give me a break, right? But Ohio State has the athletes to spy Riley Leonard. I think at the end of the day, the biggest concern, if I'm an Ohio State fan, is the special teams. Because Notre Dame finds a way to block a punt. They block a kick. They're not afraid to try things, roll the dice. We saw it in the win over Georgia. They're not afraid to take chances in the special teams game. And if this stays close enough, that could be the difference. I just don't see Notre Dame being able to match offensively what Ohio State's going to be able to do tonight. Casey, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the issues are the injuries that Notre Dame has sustained now up to this point. I don't see any update with Riley Mills. It looks like maybe a season-ending injury, so he won't be there tonight, at least as far as I've seen, and that's a huge blow. That's just something I don't know that Notre Dame can get over the hump with. Their defensive line has been good up to this point. Howard Cross has that potential to kind of elevate again one more time, potentially to be the player that he was hyped up to be earlier on the season. I know he's been dealing with some injuries on and off this season, but I agree with you in the sense that this defense, being a man defense, it is their kryptonite, what they're about to go up against. I mean, Jeremiah Smith and Mika Ibuka, those two, they eat up man coverage like it's their lunch, like it's their breakfast and dinner. I mean, they just go to town and make people look silly. And I just think that defensively, this is not a good matchup for Notre Dame. And then on the other side, Ohio State defensively has guys all over the field that are going to be NFL level starters, players, first round prospects. We talk about JT Tolomalu. We talk about Jack Sawyer. They got the defensive tackle. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the secondary is really good. They have guys all over the field, Tom, and I just don't know if Riley Leonard is going to be able to do enough on his own to be able to get them where they need to go. They're going to need a hell of a performance from this offensive line, Love and Leonard on the ground, to just play mistake-free football and keep it close and hope and pray that Howard makes a mistake, because I just don't think that there's another way for them to win. If both sides play clean football, Ohio State's going to beat them by 2 touchdowns. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop them.
Yeah, Mark Fetters brings up Carnell Tate. He's another guy. He's only a sophomore. He's going to be a first round pick by the time his senior year comes around too, at wide receiver, and the running backs for Ohio State. Somebody asked a good question in the chat. Said, who was this? It was Steve Ross. Said If you were the Bengals, you could draft one of two Ohio State players in the first round. Would you draft Jack Sawyer or Donovan Jackson, who this year has probably made more money for himself in this upcoming draft than any player in college football? Because he was an All-American candidate at left guard. They lose their left tackle for the season. He moves to left tackle. He's played great. Simmering under all of this, and I would highly recommend if any of you have The Athletic, is this officiating controversy that apparently Ryan Day has been on quite a tear on this thing. I don't know if any of you have heard this before, but think about Ohio State having the number one run defense in the country, the number one overall defense in the country. They have guys getting after the quarterback, right? And you're trying to run the ball against them. They have gone 728 consecutive plays on defense. Listen to what I said. The Marshall game, the third game of the year, was the last time an offense was called for holding against Ohio State's defense. Think about that for a minute. If people talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and getting all the calls, in the college football playoff alone, Ohio State's defense has been on the field against Tennessee, Oregon, who threw the ball 45 times, and Texas. Okay? 3 straight playoff games, 230 plays have been run. Not one time has there been a holding call against the offense against the Ohio State defense. Casey, we have almost as great a chance as today being the second coming of Jesus. And I don't say that in a sacrilegious way at all. As going 700 plays with the number one defense in the country. And I say number one, you say, well, why does that matter? Because you're trying to keep these animals off of your guys. And you go 738, 28 plays and not one holding call? Ryan Day is losing his mind behind the scenes. And it's an SEC officiating crew tonight. Your thoughts, if any?
On that one point, not really. It's such a subjective call, Tom. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's
holding. Look, if you believe, look, you talk to anybody who's ever played football, they will tell you holding is on every single play. We've all heard that for years, right? So you mean to tell me that 730 plays consecutively can go by and not one time did the offense hold an Ohio State defender? One time.
I don't know, Tom. Like, I mean, it is a little nuts that they haven't gotten one. I mean, that's shocking, but I don't know. Like I said,
I guarantee you this has never happened.
It is flawed in the idea that it's subjective, and that I will admit that. Like, I don't wish it to be subjective, but it is. It's just whenever the ref feels like calling it, right? We all know there's holding on every play, so I don't know. It's a little shocking. I wouldn't be completely honest with myself if I didn't say it's a little shocking, but there's also another reason that they don't get calls is because they're getting to the quarterback. They're actually doing something. They're stopping the run. They're stopping people from being able to throw the ball. Like, all those things have to be taken into account too. Like, it's not like they're not getting any calls at all season long and they're one of the worst defenses out there and it's been holding them back. No, it's not been holding them back at all.
Casey,
this has not held the offense, or this has not held back Ohio State whatsoever. This has not held Ohio State back whatsoever.
Well, Everett Henry asked the question, what does this mean? Is the establishment against the Buckeyes? I don't know what it means. I'm just giving the facts. I'm not giving opinion on it one way or the other. Oh, yes, I am giving opinion on it because you can't find me another team, literally of the 350 in college football or every single team in the NFL. You can't find me one team that has gone 730 plays and not been given the call of holding against the offense against their defense. That's a fact. But look, somebody else made the comment, what's going to happen? They're going to do it early in the game. They've been meaning they're going to have the hold to get it out of the way. They've been saying that for the 3 college games in a row now in the playoffs. Tennessee, Oregon, who throws it 45 times, and Texas. And not one time has it been called. Okay, we got to get out of here. The boys are standing by. Casey, your prediction. The line is now up. When we did our picks last week, I can't remember. What did we put up as a line?
Let me pull it up.
All right.
Ohio State was favored by 8. Was the line that I have written down here. They are currently favored by 8.5, so 9 points.
Okay, well, what do you think? I mean, what do we? I mean, we already made our picks, I think, with the 8-point spread, right? You took Notre Dame, and Luke and I took Ohio State. Is that right, or did Luke take Notre Dame?
No one. I don't think we made picks on it.
All right, well, let's do it right now. We'll use 8.5 as a spread.
Okay. I'm
assuming you're taking Notre Dame, and I'm taking Ohio State. Is that correct?
So I am going to take Ohio State. I'm rooting for.
Are you kidding me?
I'm rooting for Notre Dame to win.
You're wearing Notre Dame hat and sweatshirt, and you're taking Ohio State?
I am because, Tom, I don't know if you've looked at the records. If I get this one right, I'm positive on the year. So I just want to be right. I just want to be positive on the year. I'm going to root for Notre Dame. I'm going to root like hell for Notre Dame. But I think it's going to be a really tough uphill battle for them, even if they play mistake-free football. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough. They gotta hope that Ohio State makes mistakes, and I just don't think that's a winning formula.
Well, I mean, look, Will Howard's had some moments where he has made some mistakes. So, I mean, it's not like it hadn't happened before. I'm going with Ohio State. I just think they're too good. I think at the end, I think it will be a close game till the fourth quarter. And then I think Ohio State wears them down a little bit. Henderson breaks one. Judkins breaks one. Big ball, Igbuka, somebody, Smith. And they, yes, Matt Bailey. Tom, a big Buckeye fan. I am a Buckeye fan. But I'm not out of control Buckeye fan. Where you make excuses for him. I don't do it. All right, it's time now for the buoys. Standing by, Casey. I hope you have a great night. Enjoy the ball game tonight. Thanks for everything, my man.
Yep, thank you.
All right, going to be a tough night here in the Brenneman house. I got to tell you, going to be a tough night. My wife at 9 o'clock in the morning is coming down and giving me this Notre Dame stuff, right? And Mouse Cobb says Martin Luther King loved Notre Dame. Really? Okay. Matt Bailey says, Tom, it's okay to be out of control. I agree when it comes to rooting for your team. I'm all on it. Okay, have a great night. We'll be back here. We will not be here on Thursday because at Chatterbox Sports, we have a big event with the Reds Media Day. So we will not be here Thursday. We'll be back here next Monday. So I apologize for that. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the game tonight. God bless. Time now for Off the Bench. Here we go.